The hard truth is that chaos is not an exception anymore. It is the background noise of modern life. And if you keep waiting for the world to become calm before you think clearly, you will spend your life waiting. Here is the promise. You can learn to think clearly while the world stays loud. Not by memorizing rules, but by training a steadier mind. One that separates what is real from what is merely urgent, what is yours from what is not, and what you can shape from what you must endure. If you do, you won't just feel less anxious. You will become harder to manipulate, quicker to recover, and more quietly free. The first reversal is simple and uncomfortable. Clarity is not produced by more information. It is produced by better judgment. We have been taught to treat the mind like a hungry mouth, always needing more to consume. But a mind that never stops consuming rarely learns how to digest. To think clearly in a chaotic world, you have to begin where the Stoics began, not with the world, but with the boundary between you and it. Epictetus, who knew both slavery and freedom, said the dividing line of life is this: some things are up to you, and some things are not. That sounds almost too small to be profound. But in practice, it is a blade. It cuts through panic. It cuts through blame. It cuts through the fantasy that you can control outcomes if you just worry hard enough. Consider a familiar modern scene. You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, the world is already inside your head. Messages, headlines, a person's carefully edited triumph, a stranger's outrage, your own calendar waiting like a judge. You call this staying informed or being responsible, but notice what it does. It scatters your attention across 100 tiny fires, and then you wonder why you cannot feel warm. Another reversal. Your attention is not a window. It is a weapon. It can defend your peace or sabotage it. The chaotic world does not simply happen to you. It enters through the doors you leave open. This is why the Stoics spoke so often about impressions. Those first rushes of feeling and interpretation that appear before you have even chosen them. The mind receives an impression and, if untrained, immediately grants its citizenship. This is terrible. This is urgent. This is personal. This is permanent. But the disciplined mind pauses just long enough to ask for identification. What exactly is happening? What do I actually know? What part of this is my story rather than the facts? You see this difference in conflict. Someone sends you a short message. We need to talk. Your chest tightens. Your mind races ahead, rehearsing disasters. Yet the message is only 5 words. The rest is your imagination filling the silence with dread. Clear thinking begins when you refuse to treat imagination as evidence. A harder truth follows. Most suffering is not caused by pain itself, but by the mind's argument with pain. The world can injure you, disappoint you, and exhaust you. But the mind adds a second layer. Why me? This shouldn't be happening. I can't stand this. I will never recover. That second layer is often the one that breaks you. Stoicism is not denial. It is a refusal to exaggerate reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote his private notes not from a quiet monastery, but from an empire under strain, with wars at the borders and betrayal within. He did not pretend the world was gentle. He trained himself to meet it without inner screaming. He practiced describing things plainly. This is a setback. This is a loss. This is a delay. This is a person acting from their own confusion. Clarity begins when language becomes honest and sober again. You can test this today. The next time something goes wrong, an unexpected bill, a harsh comment, a plan collapsing, listen to the first sentence in your head. If it is dramatic, absolute, or insulting toward yourself, you are not thinking. You are spiraling. Replace it with a sentence that simply names what happened without prophecy. Not everything is ruined, but this is harder than I expected, and I can still respond. That is not positivity. It is accuracy. Here is the next reversal. Calm is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to act without asking fear for permission. Fear often presents itself as wisdom. It speaks in reasonable tones. It says, be careful. Wait. Don't risk embarrassment. Don't try until you're certain. But certainty is a luxury chaos never offers. In a chaotic world, The demand for certainty becomes a prison. The Stoics did not aim to eliminate fear. They aimed to see through it. Fear, at its core, is a prediction. It is the mind trying to protect you by inventing futures. Clear thinking asks, what is the probability? What is the cost? What is within my control? And then, the most important question, even if the worst happens, what would be required of my character? Picture a real example. You have to speak in a meeting, and your reputation feels like it is on the line. Your body interprets this as danger. Your pulse rises as if you are about to be attacked. But you're not in a fight for survival. You are in a moment where courage looks like clarity, saying what you mean, briefly, respectfully, and without theatrics. The chaos is internal, not external, and that means it can be trained. Another hard truth. Many people do not actually want clarity. They want reassurance. Clarity can be demanding. It may tell you that you are overcommit, that you are addicted to distraction, that you have been calling avoidance self-care, that your anger is a mask for fear, that your busyness is a way to feel important. Clarity does not always feel comforting. It feels clean, and yet, this cleanliness is what makes inner peace possible. Peace is not a mood. It is a relationship to reality. The Stoic idea is not that you should be emotionally numb, but that you should be emotionally truthful. Grief belongs to grief. Joy belongs to joy. Anger belongs to injustice. But panic belongs to confusion, and confusion can be corrected. You can practice this correction in small, almost humble ways. When you feel overwhelmed, reduce the world to the next right action. Not the next 10, not the whole life plan. The next right action. Make the call. Write the paragraph. Apologize. Drink water. Turn off the screen. Chaos thrives on abstraction. It weakens under specificity. Here is a reversal that changes how you endure pain. The goal is not to feel better first and then live well. The goal is to live well and let your feelings slowly learn the new pattern. In difficult seasons, you often do not get the luxury of motivation. You get the choice of conduct. The mind follows conduct more often than it leads it. You see this when someone is anxious and tries to think their way out of anxiety. They replay conversations, analyze futures, and call it problem solving. But they're feeding the fire. A clearer approach is almost embarrassingly practical. Return to the body, return to the moment, return to what is required. Walk. Breathe slower than you want to. Finish one task. Speak one honest sentence. The storm does not end because you argue with it. It ends because you stopped giving it infinite space. If this kind of calm, philosophical clarity is what you want more of, subscribe and leave a thoughtful comment with one pressure in your life you're learning to meet more cleanly. I read them, and they shape what we explore next. Take that small pause because now we move deeper. The first half of this journey is about regaining control of the mind's gates, attention, impressions, fear, and the story you tell yourself. The second half is about what you do with that control when the world still does not cooperate, when failure arrives, when freedom feels complicated, and when meaning must be built rather than found. Another hard truth greets us here. Failure does not simply hurt your plans. It threatens your identity. That is why it feels so sharp. If you believe you're only as valuable as your outcomes, then every setback becomes a verdict on your worth. The Stoic reversal is radical. Your life is not evaluated by what happens to you, but by what you become in response. Outcomes are partly yours and partly the world's. Character is entirely yours, moment by moment. This is not a sentimental idea. It is a practical one. When you anchor your self-respect in what you can actually govern, your choices, you become resilient in a way the chaotic world cannot easily dismantle. Think of the modern professional who loses a job unexpectedly. The mind rushes to humiliation, to catastrophic futures, to comparisons with friends who seem to be doing better. But clear thinking asks for a narrower, more truthful assessment. What has changed today? Income has changed. Status may feel threatened, but your ability to learn, to apply, to reach out, to reorient, these remain. The loss is real, and so is your remaining agency. Grief and agency can coexist. That coexistence is adulthood. Here is the next reversal. Freedom is not getting what you want. Freedom is wanting what depends on you. Most people call themselves free while being controlled by approval, by appetite, by the need to be seen as successful, by the fear of being misunderstood. They are not enslaved by chains. They are enslaved by reactions. Stoicism speaks of inner freedom with a severity that can sound almost too high, but it becomes very ordinary when you apply it. It looks like refusing to refresh your phone when you know it makes you restless. It looks like leaving a conversation that is turning you into someone you do not respect. It looks like saying, quietly, I will not trade my peace for this. Not because you are above life, but because you are finally inside it. A deep reflection follows. Meaning is not something the world hands you, like a reward for being good. Meaning is something you practice, like a craft. The chaotic world will offer you endless substitutes: entertainment, outrage, consumption, constant commentary. These provide intensity, not meaning. Meaning has a different texture. It is steadier. It is often quieter. It grows when your actions align with your values, even when no one is watching. A practical example is almost painfully simple. Think about the last time you felt mentally clear. It may not have been during a major achievement. It may have been while keeping a promise, finishing a difficult task without cutting corners, telling the truth in a small moment, or helping someone without needing credit. The mind becomes clear when it is not divided against itself. Another hard truth: anxiety is often a form of unpaid debt to reality. It is what accumulates when you avoid hard conversations, postpone decisions, ignore your limits, and live in vague dread rather than specific responsibility. Anxiety feels like a predator, but often it is a messenger. The Stoic move is not to silence the messenger with noise. It is to ask what it points to. What have you been postponing? Where are you living out of alignment? What boundary have you not drawn? What truth have you not admitted? Clear thinking does not make life painless. It makes pain honest, and honesty reduces unnecessary suffering. You can see this in relationships. Two people drift into resentment because they keep the peace at the surface while their needs go unspoken. The mind becomes chaotic because it is managing a secret. But if you speak plainly, without cruelty, without drama, the chaos often diminishes. You may not get what you want, but you get something more stabilizing. You know where you stand. Here is a reversal that matters when you're overwhelmed by the world's suffering. Compassion does not require you to carry everything. In fact, carrying everything can become a way of doing nothing because you are too burdened to act. The Stoic does not harden the heart. They focus it. They choose the sphere where their influence is real, and they work there with steadiness. A modern example: you read distressing news, and you feel a helpless, shapeless sadness. You scroll longer, as if more exposure equals more virtue. But your capacity is not infinite. Clear thinking asks, what action is actually available? Donate, volunteer, vote, speak to your community. Or, if none of that is possible today, return to your duties with seriousness. Doom scrolling is not solidarity. It is often paralysis disguised as awareness. A harder truth still: the mind becomes most chaotic when it tries to avoid mortality. When you pretend life is endless, you treat your attention cheaply. You spend your days as if they were replaceable. The Stoics kept death near not to become grim, but to become precise. When you remember that time is limited, you stop bargaining with distraction. This is the reversal. Remembering death is not morbid. It is clarifying. It shows you what matters by removing what is not. Many anxieties shrink when placed beside the finitude of life. Many grudges look absurd when you remember how brief your presence is. Many ambitions become more humane. Imagine you are lying awake at night, replaying an embarrassment from years ago, convinced it defines you. Then ask yourself, with calm honesty, will this matter at the end of my life? Not as a dramatic question, but as a focusing lens. The mind does not need to be punished by that lens. It needs to be freed by it. Now we reach the heart of thinking clearly in chaos. You are not here to win an argument with the universe. You are here to meet it with a certain kind of soul. The Stoics called this virtue, not a moral badge, but a kind of inner craftsmanship. Wisdom to see clearly. Courage to act rightly. Justice to treat others fairly. Temperance to refuse what degrades you. The practical version is immediate. When someone provokes you, the chaotic mind asks, how do I win this moment? The clear mind asks, who do I become if I respond this way? That question is not soft. It is surgical. It cuts away the cheap victories that cost you your dignity. Another reversal. Inner peace is not a retreat from life. It is a more intimate contact with life without illusion. Peace is what remains when you stop demanding that reality perform for your preferences. When you let the world be as it is, you can finally decide how you will be within it. This does not mean passivity. It means precision. You stop fighting the uncontrollable and start shaping what you can. You stop calling your impulses authenticity and start calling them what they are, weather in the mind. You learn to wait for the storm to pass before you declare truth. A final practical example, because philosophy must end in life. Tomorrow, chaos will offer itself again. A late train, a sharp email, a surprising expense, a loved one's mood, your own fatigue. When it arrives, try one small discipline. Before you react, name what is in your control in one sentence. Then name what is not. Then choose one action that honors the person you want to be. Not the person who feels best in the moment, but the person you can respect afterward. And if you fail, and you will sometimes treat that failure with clarity too. Not with excuses and not with self-hatred. Simply with the calm resolve to begin again. The chaotic world will always invite you to be scattered. Your quiet rebellion is to be whole. Because the deepest truth is this: the world does not become more manageable when it becomes more predictable. It becomes more manageable when you become more grounded. So when the noise rises, when the pace quickens, when certainty disappears, do not ask for a calmer age. Ask for a clearer mind. Let the world be loud. Be unmistakably calm.